This thing with last names. This thing with last names. It's something that I want to revisit. Um, I did a video on last names a long time ago. Um, you notice like how you can go on, and I'm just using him as a source, right? You know how you can go on like, Roland Martin's channel and watch the end of his live stream and see like all the people who've donated over the span of his show and him doing, memberships and stuff like that. Like you literally can see like all the last names, right? And you can also, if you have an ancestry account, right, or a family search account, you can look at all the last names and newspaper clippings from like old dates. Like if you don't know all African American last names for some reason, right? And you notice that when you search up, European last names, right? Like what are European last names? And you see like how they're vastly different from African American names. So like if you see a white person with the African American last name, you automatically think like, okay, this person has an African American bloodline, even though they look European and white, right? Even though they look the way that they look, right? And you say, this person has to have a father or a great 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 grandfather, who has to be African American. Like, what is a European person doing with the last name Hill? What is a European person doing with the last name Early? What is a European person doing with the last name Williams? What is a European person doing with the last name Washington? And you keep going on, and you see, like, this is different, right? This is different. And it also helps to know that, like if you live in America, right, North America, right, black and white people, right, in some instances, if you're in the suburbs, right, they live closely together. But as much as we see that there's forced assimilation on both sides, blacks forced assimilating into white culture, whites forced assimilating into black culture, there's a history between them two on plantations. That's probably as early as it go back in modern history, right? This is why you can have a person who is Jamaican with the last name like Grant, like Horace Grant, right? He played for the Chicago Bulls. And you can see like, okay, this is how a person from Jamaica can have a last name from someone from Liberia or for someone from Ghana who comes to Jamaica, right? And they have a distinctively different name from someone who is in North America. And this is played out and played out, but people, their attachment to saying things like African Americans, they have white last names. I think like you got to look at that kind of differently, right? And I don't think that's entirely true. I really don't. Because, throughout history, they always say, well, this is Middle English. This is, what do they say? This is Old English. Or they'll say, this is modern English. And then you also see that, even with the first names, right? You see that there's no white people naming their sons Jaquan. You know what I mean? So I look at all of that, man, and I just say, like, people really got to look at this from a different angle and not be so pulled on speaking from what the general consensus likes to pass over, right? You know what I mean? Like they like to pass over. I don't think you have to speak broken French all the time. Like if your name is Charles, you need to be speaking English. Like I don't think you should be saying, well, I could speak French. I could speak some language called Pawnee, some language called Sioux. Like I don't think you really need to do that, right? Be proud of your history. Like even even if you do have like, less than 20% European DNA, right? Like, what is that compared to the entire history, right? You're over 80% African. Like, you need to find out what is all this history that's in front of your face. Like, what is all of that from? So it's like, you don't have to change your last name. You know what I mean? Like, that's your history. You know what I mean? Like, that's your history. Yeah, I kind of look at it like, people, they're missing out on this opportunity because of like these these unfortunate incidents that we see, right? Where people, they glamorize, the Willie Lynch letter. They glamorize Stockholm syndrome. They glamorize these things that's talked about among certain liberal circles. And that may not always be true, because we know how misinformed people really are, though, when we really look at this. Like, just listen to the 5 past minutes that I've just spoken on. People are misinformed. They really think black people were the enslaved, over the course of the last 400 years. They really believe that. They don't know anything about the history from 711 to 1492. They speak on dumb diverses without pointing out dumb diverses. They speak on the Pabble Bulls that forced Saracens, without knowing they're Saracens, into slavery, into peonage, into forced servitude. And again, they don't call forced servitude. They call it slavery, right? As if slavery is not a nationality. So there's a lot of things that we got to speak on, man. Like, even without saying that there's a denotation and a connotation, there's a lot of different things we got to point out. And it goes along from just reading. Because if we're just speaking from a point of emotion and talking about, this doesn't seem right, or this may not be right if I say this, like, you got to understand something. Everything mixes and matches. So you have to go out on a point and start learning, and then saying what you mean and what you know. And if you're not doing that, then your point is just it's not going to go over well. So yeah, I will say this, that's been my existence, right? Since my family lived in the deep rural south of Mississippi, right? What we know is farm stables. That's our history. Trading and trapping, that's our history. I mean, the fact that I live on the south side of Chicago, right, and I see boarded up houses, that's not your existence. You probably live in the suburbs. You probably got here maybe a generation ago, and you don't know my experiences. You probably didn't come from a home where your grandparents watched it Wild Wild West movies, right? Western movies. Butch and Clee. You probably didn't come from that. You probably didn't see that culture. You probably didn't see that Chicago culture up close and personal like we all saw who was from the south side of Chicago. You probably didn't get to see that. So of course you're going to see me and you're going to say like, why is his name this or why is his name that, right? It won't make sense to you. You know what I mean? Like, I can say like this for myself, right? I feel like America has done my family right up until the degree that they have allowed it, right? I have a retirement pension. I have 3 farms. What am I going to really complain about? What am I really going to complain about? I can sell all my farms today and just feel like, it really wouldn't matter, right? What am I going to complain about? Sure, the politics is not where I want it to be. It's not where I would liken it to be. But again, what could I really complain about, right? Knowing that the history in America has always been what it's been in this day, right? Nothing really has changed. other than the fact people have come and people have left. Great peace, Yatoki.